I'm Tom Osman, and this is Whatever Comes Next, the podcast where I explore the world of underground and independent music making. And on today's episode, I am talking with vocalist, guitarist, and also drummer, but not in this band, Guinevere of Wyrmoon, who today, in fact, have just released their second album, Wyrmoon II, on Fiadh Productions, as well as actually being self-released on a rather beautiful marbled vinyl edition. So you can get the vinyl directly from the band on Bandcamp, and you can get a cassette from Fiadh Productions. And this was, again, a band that I was not previously familiar with. I went through a press release of the label with various releases that were coming out, and this one stood out to me, and I thought, this music's cool. Let's talk to someone who made it. And so I did. And that is just about that. So I am going to play what in fact was a single from the album, Sickle Knife Devotion. And, did I mention? Wyrmoon is a black metal band. And they're based up in Maine, in the upper east part of the United States. Cold and potentially snowy, which to me seems like just exactly the kind of environment that you want if you're going to be making black metal. So you can hear from Guinevere exactly what kind of impact that environment has had on the music of Wyrmoon. Wyrmoon Forever is the handle for anything Wyrmoon related on Instagram. Meanwhile, you can follow me on all social media at Tom Osman Sounds. You can go to my website, tomosmansounds.com, for my music. You can go to patreon.com/whatever comes next for extended interviews from recent times. And that's about it. So, Guinevere of Wyrmoon, take it away. Like you are in at least a rehearsal space, if not a recording space.
It's both. It's also my house.
And what else is there in this space apart from the drums? You are not just a drummer, right? You seem to be a multi-instrumentalist.
Right. Yeah. So on the Wyrmoon stuff, I play guitar and sing, but I play drums for a few other bands.
Ah, okay. Yeah, so I was a little bit perplexed about whether it really is a band, what the lineup is. Can you sort of reveal exactly? Because I've looked at some promotional pictures and I see three of you, and then I looked at the release of Sickle Knife Devotion, and it looked like there were four people listed, and then on the Fiadh press release, there's just you. So I thought, what is actually the band made up of?
Yeah, so there is a real band, and it kind of started with my friend Bariann Tennyson, who's played bass on the album, and he's the bassist for Obsidian Tongue, and he has his own project called Name Bearer, and is in a few other bands around here. And he kind of I was kind of done with playing heavy music, and he encouraged me to keep going with this project. So I was like, well, I need people to help me do it because I can't do it completely by myself. So the original proposition was just to record and release albums. That's mostly what I'm interested in, more than playing live at this point. But as time has gone by with this project, I felt more like, well, you know what, actually it would be really good to play live. And that's also the best way to sell records. So I kind of pivoted, and that's sort of the distinction, is that he is on board, Brian is, for recording more stuff, but he's not really available to play shows because he's so tied up in his other projects.
Mm.
So like he had a tour just before that photo shoot was done, and when he came back, I was like, do you want to be, do you want to be a part of this? Like, I'm probably going to start doing live shows in the spring. And he's like, I would love to, but I just like can't really do that. I can't commit to that. So he gets credits on the album, and credits for making the band kind of happen at all. But he's just not available to do live shows. So I found another person that we're going to start doing rehearsals with this or next month, I guess, and see if it works out. But we do have a set guitarist and a set drummer, which are Ryan Stinson is the guitarist, who also recorded the album or most of it. And then Stuart Johnson is the drummer, who's like kind of a younger guy around the scene here.
And on the topic of the latest album, one of the first things that I wanted to say is I really think it sounds great. Like that was one of the first things that immediately struck me, because like the label sends out various press releases, and the way they do it, they'll tend to have like about 14 different releases that they mention. So I kind of like go through them and go like, oh, what are the things that particularly stand out to me? And the record instantly stood out to me. Like it's just so satisfyingly rich in sound. Like, the bass and the drums are really powerful. I find like a lot of metal bass kind of gets buried.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that kind of like full tone to the record. So what
Great.
was the actual like recording production process like for the record?
So I workshopped all the guitar parts by myself at home, on a little like digital amp, basically. And in the original, the little EP that came out a few years ago, I played drums as well. I just kind of did everything on that. And I like set all the riffs and kind of worked them out to a click, and made like rudimentary drums. Then I got Stuart to agree to play drums in the studio. So I sent him what I had, and we scratch tracked guitars. And then when he was ready, which didn't take too long, he just basically like rehearsed in his practice space, until he felt like he could play the songs. And then we like booked a weekend. My friend Ryan, who I'm in another band, Apollyon, with, like we've been friends for 10 years. During COVID, he kind of like built up a studio at his house with some legit microphones and like good software and everything. So we just did drums at his house. And once we had drums locked down, I started just like going over his place like every week, do like knock out half a song, after work or something. And we piecemealed it like that. And then we sent those files to Brian, and he did bass. So it was really like everyone kind of recorded in their own spaces. Only the drums were done like in a pro studio. And then I did the vocals here at my house, and like some of the guitar solos here at my house, just like direct in, and then we reamped and stuff like that. So Ryan kind of assembled the whole project and is responsible for like the live miking. And then Aaron from Falls of Raros, who is another person that's kind of like involved in our circle, did the mixing. He plays guitar for Panopticon as well, and he's just like started mixing and doing more production side stuff. And he just has a crazy good ear. Like he just picked it up really fast. I mean, he's a really smart person as well, but he knew what we were going for. And like, I'm glad that you noticed the bass tone. Like that's really important, I feel like, to me as well. Ryan mixes more like hardcore records. That's kind of like more his style. So I was like, I don't think this record will be for you for mixing. Like he wanted to do it, but I was like, Aaron is like really into black metal and like knows what sounds good. So we just went for it. And he killed it. Aaron totally knocked it out of the park mixing it. It sounds, I think, really good as well.
And in terms of your interest in this kind of music and black metal, I'm curious both in terms of the evolution of your taste in music, but also as a performer. What was sort of your entry point into extreme music, and what got you into playing this kind of music?
I would like in high school, I was really just into like thrash metal and like Iron Maiden and kind of the classics. So when I got dropped into college, I had a roommate who was really like all about death metal and like kind of like modern hardcore and death metal. And he introduced me to like, I'm trying to think of what the like Relapse records and like Hydra Head and stuff. And so that kind of like, that blew my mind. a little bit, and I just found another person at the college I was going to who was into like extreme music and like grindcore. So originally, like the first band I was in as an adult, like he had me drumming. It was like a two-piece basically, and he was really into like Pig Destroyer and all this like super technical shit. So I feel like that's kind of where I got my chops, was just like, all right, I really this really like fast over the top stuff is really good. And then I like, yeah, I guess I discovered black metal sort of like around like 22 or 23. So I was a little late for it, but just started with like the classic second wave shit, like just Dark Throne and Immortal, whatever, like that kind of thing, Aberrim, and just always had like a fondness for it. Like I'm a pretty outdoors person, so like it really seemed to just mesh well with like hiking and like living
Yeah.
outside. Um, and other people that I like was friends with here in Maine, like there's just sort of some overlap between like punk rock people and like black metal people in that regard. People who are into the outdoors, but also into like lo-fi recording and just like not about it being like production style, but just like more raw, emotional. And same thing with the performances. So like
Yeah.
that, I guess that's sort of the pathway, and then it's just been like aesthetic preferences from there, really.
And I wanted to ask you actually about the environment as well, because my geography is terrible in general, but particularly terrible with the United States. But from what I understand, you are right up in the most northeasterly part of the US. Because one of the things I was thinking listening to the record as well is that in general, when I listen to black metal, I feel like I'm listening to something on an icy cold landscape. And I thought, oh, I wonder where you live. And then I looked at where you live and I thought, that's probably quite cold. So, how
Yeah.
much do you think the environment influences the music as well for you?
Hugely. I mean, I think that's a really like critical part of it for sure. And yeah, we're surrounded on three sides by Canada. We're the one state that has only one state bordering it. So we are like, there's a really deep history of like French Canadian culture here in the state of Maine. And so like that is sort of a thoroughgoing thing. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot, like I haven't traveled extensively in Scandinavia, but I've been to Norway, and like there is a lot of similarity. We're sort of like the worn down version of it in terms of like geologically, like things aren't so towering here, but it's the same like type of environment and really thin soil and just like rocky, cold. It's already started snowing. We're supposed to get 9 inches of snow in 2 days. So like, it's like that up here. And that definitely like the darkness and the cold like do sort of lend themselves to that sort of melancholy and like riff writing.
Yeah. And what about from the lyric writing point of view? Do you sort of like do regular writing practice just in general that isn't necessarily for the purpose of songwriting?
Yeah, I write and read like I probably write at least every like other day, if not every day. And I've been like, yeah, my number one favorite hobby probably is reading. So I read a lot of books. And I write mostly like just sort of like autobiographical diary stuff for my own mental health, but I do write like some fiction. I'm sort of cooking in the background, and we'll see where that goes. But I have always enjoyed writing for my entire life. So
And in terms of the lyrics of what you're doing with the band, like I've seen the lyrics for Sickle Knife Devotion, and I see lots of, symbolic imagery. So what can you tell people about the lyrical content and the sort of the themes that you're writing about?
well, it's definitely pretty like it's like personal history turned into like symbolist fiction. And how deep do I want to divulge on my personal life? I have had, some pretty difficult experiences in life. And so some of those are just dredging up, just like growing up in an abusive family, and having been assaulted, and just, the terrible things that can happen to people in the world. And trying to just like process some of that stuff. I think that song especially is sort of like, you know, what if victims like started taking revenge on their abusers? And some of it is just, I mean, we live in a political moment, Tom. There's a lot of things going on here. So without diving into it too much, like I would say I'm just really channeling some of the like rage and frustration, fear, and desire for change that a lot of people are feeling over here, and just trying to encourage people to take action and also like stay hopeful.
Do you get a sense of catharsis from this writing?
Definitely. Yeah, it's really helpful for me.
Yeah. And another thing I wanted to ask you about the band in general. So tell me a bit about the history, because it seems like maybe the band in one form or another has been going for a while. And was the band originally feral before?
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
So what can you tell me about the history of the band and your involvement in it? How far back does it go?
I mean, I am the original member of Feral because that project kind of started the same. It was just like a one-person band, and then I found the singer, and she made a really strong like impression on me. Like, didn't really have a background as a musician, but was just this really like intense vocalist, and also had a history in like stagecraft. Like, I think she was, she had a background as like a drama student. And so it's like, I think I want you to front my band because I wasn't really ready to sing for it yet. And yeah, we were a going concern for like 7 or 8 years. And I mean, it was a few things that kind of did it in, but it was difficult again because we shared members with Falls of Raros and like other bands that were very busy and like pretty successful. So it kind of was a situation where like I had to do the legwork on writing, booking tours, writing, like booking shows or really like any of the, development of the bands. And they were always like there when it was time to do stuff, but not in like the creative process. So I think that made them and me like feel like like they were less invested in it. And like with a lot of things, I think when the pandemic happened and everybody kind of had to like simplify their lives in some way, both of the guitarists were like, I don't think I want to do this anymore afterwards because I'd like to just focus on my other projects. And that was sort of the end of Feral, where I was like, I don't know if I want to try and put the whole band back together from losing like 2 or 3 people like that. It just feels weird to me, even though it was my project. Like when people do that, I always kind of question the like, it's like ship of Theseus type shit. Like, why are you doing this? Just make a new band, right?
Yeah.
And I wasn't even sure that I wanted to like keep doing heavy music at that point. So I just let it sleep for like a couple years, even though we had spent money on vinyl and, like had a fan base and stuff. But I just felt like it was not really correct to try to keep that band going. So I just picked a new name and kind of started a new vibe. And yeah, just got Wyrmoon going like maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
And where does the name come from? Because it definitely sounds pagan.
It came in a dream. I just thought of it, or like whatever. Woke up and was like, "That's the name of my new band." That's it. And so like, we sort of like, my partner at the time and I like talked about it a lot afterwards. And it's like I think it's a prefix, like a old English prefix or like Middle English prefix for like, like where in the same way that like werewolf, there's like were and whiff, and like whiff is like the feminine version of the same thing. But like it was definitely I've had like an obsession with werewolves my whole life, and creatures that transform. So like it was a little bit of that, combined with just like pagan mysticism, which I think would be the thing that I would closest like associate my religiosity with or spirituality with.
Did you find that once you had a different name, that it somehow changed the style of the music that you were writing?
It definitely set the intention in a different direction for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think it like set the tone, and it's weird like to have it come from a dream. Like I can look back on it now and be like it was kind of prophetic. Like I didn't totally know what I was doing, but I kind of did, in some way. So
Yeah.
uh,
And I'm curious with what you mentioned about with the tours, because that was something I wanted to ask you at a certain point, was how much over the years you've been involved with the booking side of things, because that's something I quite like to explore with people I interview in terms of, how you went about booking tours and shows, whether it was with venues or other bands or with booking agents or promoters. So what was your own, or what has your own experience been like in that regard?
I think like the time that I came up in like early 2000s in New England, the like understanding was sort of like you invite bands from the region that you'd like to see to your home city. You give them a show, and then you expect them to return the favor, and you can sort of like translate that into a tour. And I really kind of operated that way for a long time, but I found that like over time it didn't really pan out, because sometimes the band that you hosted like wouldn't be a band by the time you were ready to do a show in their city, or they just didn't feel obligated to do the thing. So like sometimes, yeah, you would have another band that just wanted to do tours or like had connections in further away cities, and that, you know, that would work. Other times it was more like, I had a few friends that just did more like exclusively promotion in this area, and it could like lean on them to get the names of clubs or bands. But like a lot of it was really just straight up just like cold calling people, or like cold emailing people and being like, this is my band and we're going on tour at this time, or like I want to play in this city, can you put a show together or help us put a show together? And it really hasn't evolved that much beyond that, except that just the longer you're alive, like the more people you know in bands that like are around the country, and America's huge. So, you know, there's a lot of like opportunities to stop along the way. There's a lot of cities of, you know, 300,000, 500,000 people that you can sort of just like string something together. And that sort of even extended into like Canada a little bit in the recent years, which is great because I really like playing in Quebec and Toronto. It feels really good to go up there. So like, that's kind of it, just like the old school punk rock way. Like,
Yeah.
I've never used like a booking agency or anything like that. Like, I don't think any of the bands that I've been in have been so successful that that would be merited. But
And so from that point of view, like another thing that's sort of come up with various people that I've talked to is I get a sense of, you know, when you're operating in the world of underground music and particularly extreme music, which is quite niche in a lot of ways, that some sort of sense of community, whether it's the local or the broader, you know, the community of like-minded people, can be very important. So do you feel from that perspective of over the years of the contact you built up with people in the music world that it's kind of, you are part of this musical community that's spread out of like-minded people who can kind of support each other?
yeah, I mean, that's probably why I'm still in it, like at all. Like that's what does the most for me, is just like, yeah, being there to materially support people. And I've had some cool experiences of like traveling even to faraway places and just staying like on someone's couch from a band that I knew that I met like one time, but like turning it into part of a vacation, or like, but you know, I've seen really pretty amazing things over the years, like people fundraising to help pay for each other's like cancer treatment, or just hold each other up, you know. And I do feel like that is the main draw for me, is the community. And like, you know, it's always exciting when like new musicians come on the scene that are like in their 20s, and you can kind of like point them in the right direction, or like whatever, help them achieve success with their project, and just like keep it going. Like there's definitely a while there where I was kind of worried about Maine and New England in general. Like there weren't a lot of young faces, but that has changed a lot in the last 5 years, and it seems really strong again, which is great because, you know, you want it to keep going for
Yeah.
sure.
And given that environment that you're in, like as we touched on the weather before, I would imagine that from your experiences with touring, you've probably got some gnarly stories of, you know, potentially getting stranded in the snow. Does anything immediately spring to mind of like on the road misadventure?
Yeah, for sure. So I like whenever I could and have free time, I always like to go out with Falls Varos when they tour and just drive or like sell merch or whatever. And yeah, we did. They had a show. What was it? How did it go? They had a show in Montreal, and then they had a show in Quebec City the next night, and then they had a show in Toronto or outskirts of Toronto the third night. So like, and we kind of had gotten attached to Kwok from This Quiet Army. He's a really awesome person and like really world touring like solo musician, but he does like noise. I don't know. You may know some of his stuff, but he's like collaborated with like Naja, and he's a pretty like prominent like noise artist, I guess. But so he kind of just got in the car and like was along for the ride for a few of these shows, and did some of them too. And Montreal and Quebec City are like, I don't know if you've ever played there or like heard of them, but they have a reputation for just being like extremely late night for whatever reason. Like shows start at 11 p.m. for some reason sometimes, or like midnight. So it was like a 2-day sort of back to back of like shows that started really late, ended at like 4 in the morning, drunk and carrying on. And then like we finished up in Quebec City and it was like the sun's coming up. We're staying at some friend's apartment. And everybody like gets to bed at whatever, 5 a.m. something. And like we get woken up 2 hours later and the person's like partner had come home and was like, oh, you guys should leave. There's like a huge blizzard happening in between here and Toronto. So everyone just had to like get up on very low sleep and drive. And in fact, like, so I was driving the van for that. And like the weather got so bad that everyone on the highway just like went single file. Like, you know, it's a 2 or 3 lane highway, like major road between Montreal and Toronto. And it was like white out. Like you basically just had to follow the tail lights of the person in front of you. So it was just like 3 or 4 hours of driving, like single file. And the snow is coming down so fast that like on either side, like if you went off the rut where the tires were, you'd just be stranded like immediately. So you just had to like go. And that was pretty dicey for sure. That was probably the worst like cold weather. It was also extremely cold too. It felt like it was 10 below zero or something like. So there was some stress, but it was a good memory. I mean, they made it. So
it's a story. No, I mean, but that does sound pretty precarious. I would be pretty scared of that.
Yeah, it's a nail biter. You know, that's the kind of stuff that gets you smoking cigarettes again, for sure.
And you touched on merch before, talking about going out to tour with other bands. This is also something that's come up a lot when I've been talking to different musicians of the importance of the merch desk. So,
Yeah.
how vital is it for bands in your
On tour?
experience?
Oh, I think it's essential. I mean, if you're gonna like, I guess it depends on what your goals are. But in my opinion, it is really important to, you know, have different stuff available for people to buy and make sure that someone is there to sell it. So that I think some people like maybe this is like outdated with social media, but like that used to be sort of the parasocial experience, right? Like you would go to the merch table and get to talk to someone from the band and like gush at them about how you like their music or how it influenced you and buy a record. And people appreciate that experience. You know, it's like buying from a small craftsperson or whatever. So like that is good. And yeah, I mean, you kind of like, I hate the commodity aspect of it that you're just like pushing out t-shirts, but like I've heard a lot of, you know, musicians over the year joke that they're just t-shirt salespeople. Like that's real. Like that's how you make your money. And you know, that's why bother doing vinyl at all, right? Like it's just this pretty object that has printmaking on it, and you kind of have to have something for people to like keepsake. And I think it's good. I mean, I think that the era that we're in, where everything is for rent and you can't own anything, is terrible, and we should overthrow all of these companies and all of these rich people. But you can hear more about that on my record. So,
well, from that point of view, I did want to ask you how you feel about the digital age, about streaming services, about, we could talk about Spotify specifically. You know, the whole, obviously there are certain advantages in terms of being able to get your music out there to a wider audience, but what do you think in general of the pros and cons of this digitized age and how it's connected to music?
I think the technology would be a pro if it was in the hands of the musicians, but it's in the hands of people who are rent-seeking capitalists. And so ultimately, it's just going to be turned against us. Like we already know that the music on Spotify gets scraped for AI. They're trying to replace, you know, being able to pay any artist for anything that gets used commercially. Like the underground will always be the underground, that's for sure. But it's just like a backdoor way to get institutional capture, the way that you had in the 70s, where the only people who could afford to have a recording studio were giant labels, you know, and that's how they gatekept access to music and made a profit off of it. And it's just like a new way to do that. They've integrated with Ticketmaster and they control the venues. They're just trying to chokehold it. And these are people that produce nothing and do nothing and have no interest in actual music or creativity. They just want to make money or feel some weird sense of control over people's activity. So I think it's bad. I mean, there's this project that I just recently subscribed to called, actually the zine is sitting right here. Hold on. So I'm trying to remember. Subvert. Yes, that's what it is. So this is like this weird little music commune thing that's trying to like set up its own streaming service because, basically in reaction to Bandcamp being sold a few times in recent years. So yeah, I mean, we can see clearly that like the premise of the internet, that it's, something that liberates people and is in the hands of the user, has not come to fruition at this point because everything is kind of snapped up by 3 or 4 companies. So we either need to wrest control away from them, or we need to figure out access to technologies that aren't corruptible in that way. But if everything is controlled by a few companies that develop and maintain the technology in such a way that they and they alone control who gets in it and how you have access to archive media, then that's useless. I mean, that's not good.
Yeah.
Right? You're better off with books and records because at least they're in your house and they're yours. And they employ people like to make them as opposed to just, digitally reproducing them. Like it's actually better to just pay people to make stuff because they can make a living. So that's my opinion on that, I guess.
Well, that was interesting with Subvert. It reminds me of, I don't know if you are familiar with Chris Grigg of Woe and Glorious Depravity. He's also created how did he call it? I think he calls it a music community, which was kind of created as an alternative to Bandcamp. And so it provides the opportunity for artists to sell their music, but it also provides the opportunity for visual artists to promote and sell their work too. And it has like a Discord connected to it. So it's actually got this kind of interactive community aspect, like with what you were saying with the music, with the merch desk, that historically this was the way that you could interact with a band. So it's kind of finding a way to sort of replicate that community in an online sense, and also having a platform that's not controlled by some gigantic tech overlords.
Well, that sounds really interesting. Yeah, I know of Woe, but I didn't actually know about that project. I definitely will check that out because that sounds good. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing that needs to happen, basically.
And it's pretty new as well. Like I think that's just in the last couple of years that they set that up. So, I can imagine there's the potential for other platforms like that to exist. But it's kind of, I guess it's always the thing in these sort of niche underground environments. Like I'll often find, like I'll discover a band, and then once I've discovered them, I feel like, oh, like I've always known them, and like anyone should know them. And then I like introduce them to someone else. It's like no one's heard of this band, but of course they haven't, because like it's all these tiny little pockets, and it's such a large world that it's very difficult to interconnect all of these things.
It is wild. I mean, I think we're like around the same age. I'm 42. Like you even just like revisionist stuff where you go back and you're like, how are there this many new bands in the 80s that I've never heard of still somehow, and the 90s? Like it really is like that. It's crazy. So like, and then just, every year there's like a million new 21-year-olds who come out with like a million new great records, and none of them have heard of each other or know what you're talking about. And yeah, there is a flood of music in the world. And I don't know. I don't know what any of that means, but there's a lot to say, I guess, in this time.
Yeah, for sure. But it is impossible to keep track of everything.
Yeah, no way. Like it is literally. And then you start diving into like other countries. Do you know Aesop Decker from like Ludacra, and I think he's in Ghoul and like Impaled and all that stuff from the Bay Area.
Ghoul. Because I've interviewed Scotty Heath from Tank Crimes.
Okay.
And
yeah. Tank Crimes, great.
Yeah. And I think I've interviewed a drummer who I think was potentially in Ghoul, but they're all kind of like anonymous, right? They all wear masks.
Yeah, that's true. Sorry, whoops, I fucked that up.
So it's probably not that much of a real secret.
Yeah, no, unrelated. Aesop had like a blog back in the early 2000s called Cosmic Hearse, and it was incredible. Like he would dig up these bands from Cambodia. They were like, this can't be fucking real. Like, I mean, I think he was just going to Aquarius Records in San Francisco every week and just digging. But like some of the stuff that he came up with was just like, he had like I don't know what you call it, but it was basically like an archive where you could download these albums, because there's like, they would be impossible for you to get them in the United States. There was like 100 copies made on tape, like at the point of a gun at midnight in like some Cambodian like city or something. But there was just some really crazy stuff where you're like, this got made under conditions of like real austerity, like, and just real like, maybe even like social pressure to not exist at all. Like, punk kids have to hide their clothes and stuff, like, because they'll get chased out or like forced re-educated, like that kind of shit,
Yeah.
like Chinese bands and stuff. Really interesting. Like, and it was great to hear that. Just whatever. It's like unending amounts of music, hidden music.
Yeah, for sure. Now, you mentioned earlier on that at a certain point you thought that you'd stop making heavy music. So, if it weren't heavy music or if it weren't extreme metal, what would you do? And have you actually made music in completely different styles?
Not really like to record. I've kind of screwed around with some stuff. I could definitely like see myself making some kind of just like noise or electronica. I could be into that. But like, I think I would just switch to other pursuits. I'm an art school kid originally. So, I do enjoy painting and gardening and just other things. I probably would just stop making music entirely. But I was also in a pretty dark place at that period of my life. So it was just kind of feeling like, I don't know, what's the point sort of thing. But like, there is a certain amount of sunk cost. Like I've spent so many years in the music scene around here that it's a little hard to let go of and make a fresh start on that. And I do still enjoy it. It's mostly I do enjoy just creating records at this point more than playing bars and
Mm,
playing shows at all. But like it is still has a value, even though you just like lose money and waste time doing it. It still feels good.
yeah. Now, there's definitely is something to be said for like the physical artifacts of things. There's a certain kind of soul to the objects, I think, that you don't get from just digital files.
Yeah, and because of I think my background too, like I really enjoy the process of making records, like the whole thing, or making t-shirts and stuff because it gives me a chance to draw or like commission an artist that I like to draw something for me. And just get some sort of visual like component out there too. That does matter to me. So
And getting back to, specifically with the band, so the forthcoming record or album, maybe I should say, is coming out on cassette through Fiadh. And you're
yeah,
then also self-releasing a vinyl copy as well. So tell me
right.
from a practical point of view, how how much of a kind of investment is it to make the album on vinyl?
Like financially, how much of an investment is it?
I mean,
Or
yeah, financially and time.
hundreds and hundreds of hours. It's a huge pain in the ass. Basically, I'm doing it for my own enjoyment. And I don't know. I'm kind of insane, like in that way that I probably didn't need to, but I spent, several $1,000s to make this record happen, of my own money. But I don't have kids and I don't like have anybody dependent upon me. So that's, you want to leave your mark on the world, I guess, or whatever. Like, and I enjoy vinyl. So maybe it's nuts, but like, I like to do it. And I feel like because of the personal nature and like the gravity of it, like, I owed it to myself to like to do something with it, like to make it into something solid. Even if only a few people buy it, like, I think I would feel weird about this record in particular, like not doing some kind of physical release. So, before I even like had really locked anything down with Bariann and Fiadh, like I had already decided to like make the vinyl and set some money aside and stuff. But yeah, it's hundreds and hundreds of hours, like even just in the recording and mixing, of course. And then you have to get art and format that art and color correct that art and then send it in and proofs and all these things. And then there's like a special mastering process for vinyl because vinyl is actually kind of terrible for heavy music. Just the nature of the physical record. Like, yeah, there's like bandwidth issues and low end issues and stuff. But yeah, it's going to look really pretty. And supposedly they're arriving tomorrow. So I have to, you know, go get them at the warehouse. But yeah, I think it's worth it.
And how will you make the vinyl available? Will that be through Bandcamp or you've got some other? I mean, you said you were maybe going to do shows as well, so I guess you'd bring them out with you if you do that.
Yeah, first and foremost, it'll be available on Bandcamp December 5th. Like, so we'll just release the digital and the vinyl and the tape all on the same day for Fiadh Friday this week, actually. And yeah, I'll just take orders and mail them basically for now. And then the goal is to be able to do shows by like probably March, I think, March or April. We need to, yeah, I mean, this is a band that has never played together all in the same room live. So we need to get that locked together. And that will take some time for sure. Like I feel pretty good about all the individual musicians other than the bassist we need to train up. But it's more just the, playing together cohesively and convincing because it's got to be, it's got to be right. So.
And when's the last time that you played live on stage?
Last Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So no, I'm pretty like jaded show player. I've played.
Because you said that you're in a few different bands, right?
Yeah, exactly. So at least as a drummer,
I was going to say good drummers are always in demand.
Yeah, there's no end to it. I can't. It's like I can't leave. So you're never in less than 3 bands. It seems like. But playing guitar and singing is a different thing, and I have done it in the past, but it's more demanding for sure. And this music, I might have kind of screwed myself. Like it's pretty tough to do some of the parts, but I'm just gonna have to, right? So
would you be? Are you doing the guitar solos, or you'll have another guitarist to do that?
Yeah, I have another guitarist who's a much better guitarist than me, so he will do the solos for sure.
Yeah, because doing solos and singing is a major coordinating project.
Yeah, I'm not gonna like pretend that I'm Chuck Schuldiner. So it's we'll see what happens. I'll keep just like trying my best, but just singing and playing the riffs is gonna be a handful. And that's what I'll focus on for now.
And in general, in terms of people following the project, talking of tech overlords, but is Instagram the place, or are there other places?
That's the best place to just follow information about the bands. I've kind of just like reduced that to just being news about the band, basically, or like other bands in my circle, just because I want to cross promote bands from Maine and New England. But yeah, that's the best way. I mean, you can just if you buy the record, Bandcamp does that thing where you'll get an email when new stuff happens, so you can find out that way too. But the easiest way is to just follow my Instagram, and there'll be steady updates. I'm not the most on top of it. I know some people are really good about posting reels and updates all the time, but I feel like unless I have something to say, I'm not gonna bother you. So
yeah, it's difficult because I kind of like, I sort of think to myself, oh, you got to like play the game and you've got to engage with it. But at the same time, if you want to create stuff, you don't want to just get locked into being like a content creator. It's just like sounds like death.
Yeah, it's just not in my blood too. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm too old, like, or I missed the boat on like the mental bandwidth to do that. So like, yeah, you know how it is. You have bills to pay and other things in life besides music. So I don't want to focus entirely on that. If somebody in my band was like, I want to be your savvy tech ambassador and started doing that, I would not say no. Because I do live a funny life that has lots of, clippable moments in it, but I'm not going to do it. That feels really self-aggrandizing to me. So
no, I can totally relate to that for sure. Well, it was great to talk to you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the insights. And yeah, I'm a fan of the music. I'm a fan of the record. I hope it gets a great reception when it comes out. And yeah, until next time.
Yeah, really good talk.